Good afternoon, good evening, good midday. I don't know, whatever point of day you're watching this lecture. We are now going to be going into the evaluation research portion of the lectures. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. So we are going to start talking about evaluation. So let's get to it. Let's not holding time. Let's jump right into it, shall we? All right. So when we use the term evaluation research, there is this where the researcher is specific, right? This is where the researcher is specific. Sorry, can't talk. And the specific goal to determine the impact of the social intervention. That is a program that has been employed to help society actually doing what it's intended to do. Did we design it with function? Who knows? Sorry. There are other types of evaluation research we will review later, yet specifically determining if an intervention produces the intended results is called a program evaluation. For any organization or law or policies put into place that are intended to be doing something for people or society. We want to know if it is working as intended, right? So evaluation research is simply the method to examine how the social intervention works. Simple enough. The main difference between evaluation research and other types of research methods is the goal is based on some type of social intervention. Pretty simple, yeah? Applied sociology, essentially. So what we want to do here, right, is the research and its outcomes are very practical. That is applied sociology, as the last slide indicated, as opposed to doing research purely for academic knowledge. That is where we get to go into the field and conduct research on those policy programs that we come up with to help society. As a sociologist, this is exciting type of research as it is based on solving real world social problems. There are a few different types of studies that are conducted for evaluation purposes. One, a needs assessment aims to determine the existence or extent of a problem faced by a group of people, finding out what needs specifically are specialized or important is for determining how to intervene, right? Finding out what needs are specifically important for determining how to intervene is important. So if we were to study, let's say, where we analyze the needs of students in our hypothetical experiment, how much connection is felt and where is the need or the barrier that they face, right? We're looking back at the last one we did, the office hours, right? We want to determine what is the needed in order to help. Cost benefit studies aim to determine if results are of an intended program can be justified by the cost of the expense of it, right? Is it going to actually have our return on investment, ROI, right? So how expensive is the program that we aim to implement? And do the outcomes for the people outweigh the cost? Is it financial cost or needs for resources are too demanding? Organizations and public officials need to know that information for making decisions about the programs. Monitoring studies take stock of a flow of information about something of interest, right? So let's take this a little bit further, yeah? So the CDC's monitoring of the COVID-19 outbreaks fits an example here. The collection of data allows research to pinpoint rates so that necessary interventions can be employed if certain thresholds are met, right? Collecting information on crime rates over the last several decades are monitoring studies, seeing when there is a spike or when the rate lowers is important for interventions. Taking measurements over time, a time series design will be able to pinpoint where changes occur, which is important. And as mentioned before, program evaluation is a study that's specifically designed to test if the intervention is working. That is also referring to as outcomes assessment. So we have our needs assessment to find the problem and the outcome assessment to evaluate the intended intervention to fix the problem. Evaluating research design includes experimental and quasi-experimental designs, qualitative evaluation through in-depth analysis of interventions, and the people who intervene as intended or is intended for the time series data collection and the use of existing statistics. Essentially, when we're doing this right, existing statistics allow us to kind of have not having to reinvent the wheel, right? We want to, when we want to conduct a program evaluation, researchers generally set up an experiment or a quasi-experiment or might conduct qualitative assessments by observing how the interventions is going in real life. So kind of all the way back, all the way forward, right? Program evaluation research designs are experimental designs, quasi-experimental designs, qualitative evaluation, time series data collection, existing statistics, yada, 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 right? We're making sure that we go down the path of these understandings. So let's look at some of these quasi-experiments, right? Make myself a little smaller here so you can see. Quasi-experiments are simply those that do not fit the classical experiment standards. These may not have a pre or post test as we talked about last lecture or a control group. If they do not include a control group, it may not be matched with the experimental group. So if we were to choose our research methods as the experimental group for the required office hour that we talked about intervention, and we chose another research method class for a control group, these are not equivalent control groups. While they will be similar, roughly the same number of students in each course with the same major requirements for taking it, the groups are not selected through random assignment of participants. Because these are conducted in the real world, they are harder to control perfectly, right? Things can happen. Yet, setting up quasi experiments or classical experiments can help us measure the independent variable, the stimuli, and if they actually show to have the intended outcomes, right? The major strength of evaluation research, of course, is that we can gain knowledge and make change for real social interventions, which is major and huge as a sociologist. Yet a major drawback and ethical concern is that sometimes the results may not be as intended, right? If there is a deeply held belief about policy or program and interests in seeing it squashed, the results of the evaluation research may be ignored if it doesn't fit the needs or desires of those in charge of the intervention. So, ethically, social science researchers conducting evaluation research, right? So ethically, as social science researchers conducting the evaluation research, it is important that we set up our evaluation studies soundly and that we accurately report the findings. Because in all things, authenticity, right? Doing sociology practically for the improvements in society, this is some of the strengths and weaknesses. Implications may not be presented in a way that non-researchers can understand, right? Jargon, you have the idea of we may speak in a way that is not understood, interpretive primacy, which is a big deal, right? Because I know this. Think back to 2008. Everyone keeps saying what caused the recession, the banks fall down, and interpretive primacy is people will say words that they don't understand. And then those words end up becoming misconstrued. And results can sometimes contradict deeply held beliefs and interests in the program slash policies are ignored. We may point out the elephant in the room, but no one wants to talk about the elephant in the room. It's a big deal, right? So with all things, things come conclusive and come to conclusion. And I will see you next lecture when we have our last lecture, which is on quantitative analysis, when we look at how we break down large metadata and just data in general and be able to see the stories in the numbers. I'll see you in that lecture.